The chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with voices, cold and distant, like the stars themselves. Dozens of alien races sat in their crystal thrones, their strange eyes shining under the light of the great hall. They were old, wise, and powerful, or at least they believed so. For thousands of years, they had kept order across the galaxy. They thought nothing could disturb their peace. But that day, a voice from a small, blue planet tried to change their view. The representative from Earth stood at the center. He was alone, one man against 1,000 alien rulers. His voice was steady, but his hands were tight at his sides. "A storm is coming," he said. "Something dark moves in the void, beyond the edge of mapped space. We have seen its signs. We have intercepted strange signals. If you ignore this warning, it will not only come for Earth, it will come for all of you." The hall was silent for a moment. Then laughter broke out. A tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms leaned forward. His voice was sharp, full of mockery. "Humans again. Always so dramatic. You have been in the stars for only a short while, yet you think you see threats we, the ancient guardians of this galaxy, have missed." Another voice joined, this one soft and cruel. A being of light, its body shifting like fire, spoke slowly. "You humans burn so quickly. Fear makes you loud. But you do not understand the deep currents of the universe. If there was a danger, we would know before you." The man from Earth did not bow, did not back away. His eyes stayed fixed on the council. "You laughed at us before," he said. "When we warned you about the raiders from the Ashen Belt. You mocked us, and then you begged for help when they burned your fleets. When we told you of the disease spreading through the star colonies, you ignored us, until it reached your own worlds. Again and again, you refuse to listen until it is too late." Some of the aliens shifted uneasily, but most only smiled with cold arrogance. To them, Earth was nothing but a child among Titans. Then one of the oldest beings spoke. A creature like stone, its voice deep as mountains. "Enough. The Council will not waste more time on this. Humanity has always been restless, always fearful. We will not follow their alarms." The gavel of decision fell, and the warning was dismissed. The representative from Earth stood still. He felt the weight of their scorn, but also something else, something colder, heavier. Because he knew what they did not. He had seen the ships on the far edge of darkness. Black as shadows, silent as the grave, moving in ways no ship should move. He had seen the fragments of destroyed colonies, the silence where whole stations once floated. He turned and walked out of the council chamber. Their laughter followed him, echoing off the crystal walls. But when he stepped into the quiet corridors beyond, his face changed. No longer calm. Now it was iron. Now it was war. Back on Earth, preparations had already begun. The governments no longer argued as they once did. Nations that had once fought each other now worked side by side. Old enemies shared their secrets. Factories that once built tools now forged weapons. Shipyards burned with light as thousands of new vessels took shape. Humanity, mocked by the galaxy, had chosen its own path. The darkness would come. And when it did, Earth would not beg the Council for help. No. Humanity would stand alone if needed. But deep inside, the humans knew something the Council did not. They were not like the other races. Humanity had been tempered by struggle, by hunger, by endless war with itself. They had built nations on ruins. They had risen from ashes more times than anyone could count. To be human was to fight, to endure, to adapt. The universe thought them weak. The Council thought them foolish. But history had always shown the same truth. Those who underestimated humanity paid the highest price. As the first great fleet of Earth rose from its docks, engines roaring like thunder, the man who had stood before the Council looked out from the command deck of the flagship. The stars stretched before him, cold, endless, and waiting. The Council laughed. Let them laugh. Soon, the galaxy would learn. And when the storm finally broke, when the shadow fell across the stars, only one truth would remain clear: humanity was not prey. Humanity was the fire. The fleet of Earth moved like a storm across the void. Hundreds of ships, sleek and heavy, each one armed with weapons forged from the lessons of centuries of war. The engines burned bright blue, and their light reflected off the blackness of space. Humanity had never built so many warships before, never united under a single command. But now, they stood together. On the flagship Vanguard, Commander Elias Kane watched the stars. He was a soldier who had seen too much, a man whose scars told stories of battles fought on broken worlds. His voice was calm when he spoke, but every officer on the bridge felt the weight behind his words. "They laughed," he said quietly, as if speaking to himself. "They mocked us. But when the shadow comes, it will not ask who is wise and who is foolish. It will simply devour." The crew listened in silence. They knew he was right. Reports had already reached Earth of colonies disappearing without a trace. Mining stations at the far edge of explored space had gone silent. The Council blamed accidents. The humans knew better. One of the officers turned from her screen. Her name was Lyra, sharp-eyed and steady. "Sir," she said, "we've received fragments of a distress signal. Source: Outpost 17, near the rim." Kane's jaw tightened. Outpost 17 was far beyond Council protection. It was one of the few human colonies in deep space, a lonely place built among frozen asteroids. "Put it through," Kane ordered. The bridge filled with static at first. Then came the broken voice of a man, heavy with fear. "This is Outpost 17. They're here. Black ships, moving without sound, defenses useless. They are inside the station." The voice cut off in a burst of static. Then silence. The crew looked at Kane. His eyes narrowed, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then, his voice was iron. "Set course for Outpost 17. Maximum speed." The engines roared, and the fleet surged forward. Hours later, the darkness of the rim swallowed them. The stars seemed colder here, the void heavier. When the fleet arrived, Outpost 17 was already broken. The humans saw it on their screens, the colony station torn open like a carcass, its metal ribs hanging in the void. Fires burned inside, spilling light into space. Shattered ships floated dead, their hulls ripped apart by weapons no human had ever seen. But what froze the blood of the crew was not the wreckage. It was the silence. No life signs. No distress beacons. No survivors. Lyra whispered. It's as if they erased everything." Then Kane spoke. "No. Not everything. Look." At the edge of the wreckage, shapes moved. Ships, black and sharp, their hulls drinking in the starlight. They drifted like predators in the deep, silent and patient. The crew gasped. This was the enemy. The shadow that Earth had warned about. They were here. One of the younger officers panicked. "Sir, should we call the Council? They must see this." Kane cut him off with a glare. "The Council will not come. They never do. This is humanity's fight." The black ships turned slowly, as if they had noticed the fleet. Their movement was unnatural, gliding without heat or energy. And then, without warning, they attacked. Dark beams of energy lanced across the void, cutting through the wreckage and striking the shields of the human fleet. The ships shook under the impact. "Shields holding," someone shouted. "Return fire," Kane ordered. The Vanguard and its sister ships unleashed their fury. Cannons blazed, missiles streaked across the black. Explosions lit up the void like stars being born. For the first time, the shadow ships hesitated. They had expected prey, not predators. But the battle was not easy. The enemy moved like smoke, twisting through the fire, striking from angles no computer could predict. One human destroyer was caught in their beams and ripped apart, its pieces scattering into the dark. Another ship lost power and drifted helplessly until it was consumed. Still, the humans fought. Every loss only fueled their rage. For every ship destroyed, they struck back harder. Humanity had always bled, but they had never stopped fighting. On the bridge of the vanguard, Kane stood tall, his eyes locked on the enemy. "You thought we would run," he muttered. "You thought we would beg. No. You'll learn who we are." The humans pressed forward, their fleet moving as one, hammering the black ships with relentless fire. And then, at last, one of the shadow vessels broke apart, its hull shattering into fragments. The crew erupted in cheers. For the first time in the galaxy, the shadow had been wounded. But the victory was bitter. The wreckage of Outpost 17 floated in silence, a reminder of what had already been lost. And as the humans watched the enemy retreat into the dark, they all knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The shadow was vast. The shadow was endless. And Earth, alone, stood against it. Kane's voice carried across the bridge, steady as steel. "Send word to Earth. Tell them. The war has begun." The stars stretched before them, cold and endless. Humanity would face the storm. And the galaxy would remember. The message spread across Earth like fire. The war has begun. In every city, in every colony, screens lit up with images of Outpost 17 destroyed, of the first human fleet standing against the shadow. For a moment, silence ruled. Then came the roar of resolve. Factories worked day and night. Volunteers filled the training camps. Old ships were pulled from scrapyards and armed for battle. Humanity, mocked and ignored for so long, was now awake. On the flagship Vanguard, Commander Elias Kane studied the reports. The shadow had retreated after losing one of their ships, but no one believed they were gone. No, they were waiting, watching, testing. The enemy was patient, and that made them dangerous. Lyra, his officer, entered the command chamber. Her face was pale but steady. "Sir," she said, "we've recovered fragments from the wreckage of Outpost 17. You should see this." She placed a small device on the table. A hologram flickered to life, broken video, captured by the colony's last cameras. At first, it showed the station in chaos. People running through smoke-filled halls, alarms screaming. Then the feed shifted, and the enemy appeared. The crew leaned forward, their breath caught. The beings were tall, thin, their bodies shrouded in black armor that seemed alive, flowing like liquid shadow. Their faces were hidden, their movements sharp and unnatural, as if they bent space with each step. One of them turned toward the camera. For a second, its mask glowed with red light, a single burning eye. Then the feed cut out. The room was silent. Kane's jaw tightened. "So it's true," he said. "They're not only ships. They board. They take." Lyra nodded. "Sir, if they can move like that inside our stations, our colonies won't stand a chance." Kane's voice was steel. "Then we will not let them reach our colonies. We will carry this fight to them." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. Humanity was still young in the stars. Their fleets were strong, but small. Their weapons fierce, but limited. Against an endless shadow, numbers mattered. That night, as the fleet drifted in orbit around a frozen moon, Kane stood alone, looking out at the stars. He thought of Earth, of cities filled with light, of children running in the streets, of oceans stretching endless under the sun. He thought of all they could lose. And then, he thought of the Council. The Council that had mocked them, dismissed them, laughed in their faces. He could almost hear their voices. "Humans are dramatic. Humans are foolish." But Kane knew better. Humanity had faced death countless times, wars, plagues, disasters. Each time, they had risen. If the Council would not fight, then Earth would. The next day, orders were given. The human fleet would not wait for the shadow to strike again. They would scout the dark, follow the enemy's trail, and learn what no other race dared to know. The journey into the rim was long. Stars grew sparse, light weaker, as if the universe itself was fading. The silence pressed on them, heavier with every passing hour. And then, they found it. At first, it looked like a dead moon, black and jagged. But as they drew closer, they saw the truth. It was no moon. It was a construct, vast and alien, built from twisted metal and stone. Black ships moved in and out of it like insects swarming their hive. The crew stared, their hearts pounding. "My God," someone whispered. "It's a fortress." Kane's eyes hardened. "No. It's a nest." They had found where the shadow bred, where it gathered its strength. And it was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. The fleet stayed hidden, sensors dark, watching from the void. They recorded everything. The ships, the movements, the strange energy pulsing from the heart of the construct. Kane knew this information was priceless. It had to reach Earth. But then, alarms screamed. "Enemy ships!" Lyra shouted. "They've seen us!" Black shapes burst from the fortress, dozens of them, moving fast. The void lit with deadly light as they opened fire. The vanguard shuddered under the impact. Kane gripped the command rail. "All ships, retreat. Get this data to Earth." The human fleet turned, engines blazing. The enemy followed, dark and relentless. Missiles flew, beams tore through the black, explosions lit the silence. Ships on both sides were destroyed, drifting as burning husks. The humans fought like wolves, covering each other, refusing to fall quietly. But the shadow pressed harder, hungrier, determined to erase them. On the bridge of the vanguard, Kane stood unshaken. "If we fall," he said, his voice carrying across the chaos, "then let our last act be defiance. Let the galaxy know, humans do not kneel." The fleet fled into the stars, hunted by darkness. Behind them, the fortress pulsed with its strange light, a warning of the storm to come. And far away, in the grand halls of the Galactic Council, the rulers still laughed, blind to the fire rising on Earth. The Galactic Council gathered once more in their shining hall. Their thrones glowed with ancient light, their voices filled with pride. To them, the galaxy was still safe, still calm. The warnings of humanity were nothing but noise, at least, that was what they believed. But this time, the voice of Earth did not beg. It roared. The representative stood tall, his eyes cold as steel. Before the council, he placed a device. The chamber flickered with a hologram of Outpost 17's last moments. Burning halls, shadow soldiers moving like living darkness, a red eye glowing before the feed cut. Then came images from the rim. The fortress, vast and alien, ships swarming around it like a black tide. The hall fell silent. Even the proudest rulers shifted uneasily. The shadows were no myth. The representative's voice cut through the silence. "You mocked us. You laughed while our colonies burned. But now you see the truth. The enemy is real. It will not stop with us. It will not stop until every world you hold dear is ash." Some of the council shouted in denial. "Impossible. Nothing of that scale exists without our knowledge." Others whispered in fear. "The fortress, it is older than any record. Perhaps older than us all." At last, the stone-like elder, the same who had dismissed humanity before, spoke. His deep voice carried shame. "What would you have us do?" The human representative's gaze swept across them. "Stand with us. Or stay silent, and watch us fight alone. But hear this, Earth will not bow. We will not wait for you to save us. We will fight, with or without you." His words rang through the chamber like a blade striking stone. That night, whispers spread through the galaxy. Some races mocked humans still, saying they were reckless, too eager for war. But others began to listen. For the first time, they saw in humanity something different, a fire they themselves had lost long ago. Back aboard the Vanguard, Commander Kane received the Council's reply. It was not an alliance, not yet. But they had sent observers, spies disguised as diplomats, to watch Earth's fight more closely. Kane understood what it meant. The Council was afraid, but not enough to admit it. They wanted proof. Proof that humanity could survive. Proof that the shadow could bleed again. And so the humans prepared. Across Earth and its colonies, industries thundered. New fleets were forged, ships larger and stronger than before. Weapons of terrifying power, once thought impossible, were rushed into reality. For the first time in history, humanity poured every resource into one cause. Yet Cain knew weapons alone would not win this war. The shadow was cunning, its technology unlike anything humans understood. To face it, they needed something more. They needed to learn how it thought. That chance came sooner than expected. Deep in the void, near the ruins of Outpost 17, human scouts captured something. A shadow craft, crippled during the battle, had drifted silently through space. The humans swarmed it, pulling it into their docks with chains of light. The moment Cain stepped inside, the air turned cold. The walls of the ship pulsed like living flesh, black metal shifting under his touch. His soldiers moved carefully, weapons raised. The silence was thick, broken only by the hum of strange energy. Then they found it. A body. Tall, thin, wrapped in armor like liquid shadow. Its mask was cracked, its chest torn open by human fire. Yet even in death, it seemed to watch them, that single red eye faintly glowing. The soldiers shivered. "What is it?" one whispered. Cain stared at the corpse. "A soldier," he said slowly. "But not alive, not in the way we know. Look." He touched the armor. It shifted slightly, like it was still breathing. The body inside was pale, with veins of black running deep under the skin. A creature made, not born. A weapon, not a people. Lyra's voice was tight with fear. "Sir, if they are not truly alive, if they are built, then how many more can they make?" Cain's expression hardened. "As many as they want. Endless." The truth was clear now. Humanity was not fighting a nation or an empire. They were fighting a machine of war that had no limits. But Cain did not despair. Instead, his eyes burned brighter. "If they can be made," he said, "then they can be unmade. We will find their weakness. We will break them." The body was taken to Earth, where scientists worked day and night to unlock its secrets. The council watched from a distance, silent, waiting. And in the cold depths of the rim, the shadow fortress pulsed with hunger. The enemy had noticed humanity's defiance. They had felt the sting of loss. Now, they would answer. The storm was coming. And humanity stood ready. The skies above Earth glowed with fire. Every orbit was crowded with warships, new and old. Fleets circled the planet like steel guardians, engines burning, weapons armed. Shipyards shone brighter than cities as they launched more vessels into the black. Humanity was ready, or so they believed. But the shadow had been watching. And the shadow was done waiting. It began with silence. Out in the rim, patrol fleets vanished. Stations stopped sending signals. Then came the storm. Sensors screamed as hundreds of black ships appeared at once, tearing through space like a wave of darkness. They did not come for small colonies this time. They came for Earth itself. On the flagship Vanguard, Commander Elias Cain stood on the command deck, his face carved with iron resolve. The alarm lights turned the bridge red. "They're here," Lyra said, her voice sharp but steady. "A full fleet. Bigger than anything we've seen." Cain's eyes locked on the screens. The enemy filled the void, ships swarming like predators. "Then this is where we stand," he said. "This is where the galaxy learns who we are." The human fleets formed a wall before Earth. Engines roared, shields flared, weapons powered up. For a heartbeat, silence hung over the void. Then the darkness struck. The shadow ships moved with unnatural speed, their beams cutting through the void, tearing into the first human lines. Explosions lit the black. Hulls cracked. Men and women screamed through calms before silence claimed them. But the humans did not break. From the Vanguard, Cain gave the order. "All ships, fire." The night of space turned into day. Cannons thundered, missiles streaked like firestorms, railguns spat death. A storm of human fury met the shadow head-on. The battle raged. Human ships fell, but they took enemies with them. Destroyers rammed into black vessels, detonating in brilliant sacrifice. Fighters darted between giants, carving paths with precision. Humanity fought like wolves cornered, savage and unyielding. On Earth below, people looked up at the burning skies. The battle was so fierce, flashes of light could be seen from the surface, like stars exploding too close. Cities trembled as shockwaves rippled through the atmosphere. Yet no one ran. They stood in the streets, eyes raised, watching their defenders fight. Lyra shouted across the chaos. Enemy ships breaking through the left flank. If they push past us, Earth's orbital defenses won't hold. Kane's voice cut like steel. Divert the ironclad and the sovereign. Seal the gap. Hold at all costs. The gap was sealed, but at a terrible price. The ironclad vanished in a burst of fire, its crew giving their lives to stop the enemy advance. The sovereign limped back, broken but alive. And still, the enemy pressed on. For every shadow ship destroyed, more emerged. Their numbers seemed endless. It was as if the void itself was birthing them. Kane gripped the command rail. His mind raced. If this continued, Earth would fall. Humanity would burn. Unless... Lyra, he said, voice low, is the captured body still on Earth? Yes, sir, she answered, confused. Then tell the scientists, now is the time. If there is a weakness, we need it. Hours turned into endless minutes of battle. The human fleet bled, but it held. Kane's voice carried through every ship, his commands sharp, his resolve unshaken. Then, at last, the message came. A transmission from Earth's Science Division, encrypted and urgent. Lyra read it aloud. Commander, they found something. The armor, the flesh, it's not alive. It feeds on a signal. A control field coming from the fortress. If the signal is broken, the soldiers fall. Kane's eyes burned. Then that fortress is their heart. Destroy it, and the shadow dies. But the fortress was far, deep in the rim. Humanity's fleets were already breaking under the current battle. Kane looked out at the war burning across the stars. He knew the truth. They could not win here by defense alone. To survive, they had to strike at the source. Send word to Earth, he ordered. Prepare the Exodus fleet. We will not only defend. We will carry the fire into their nest. The humans fought on through the night, their fleets battered but unbroken. Earth's skies burned, yet the world endured. The shadow had struck with fury, but humanity had not fallen. And in the ruins of the black ships drifting across the void, a message was clear. Humanity would not wait to die. They would go into the darkness itself. And they would burn the fortress down. The black fortress waited in the rim, vast and silent, its pulse echoing like a heartbeat through the void. From its core came the signal, the invisible thread that gave life to the shadow soldiers and guided their endless fleets. And now, humanity was coming for it. The Exodus fleet gathered in the cold dark. It was the largest armada Earth had ever built. Thousands of ships, forged in fire, crewed by every nation, every people. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and massive dreadnoughts stood side by side, engines blazing. On the command deck of the Vanguard, Commander Elias Kane looked across the endless lines of ships. His voice carried through every channel, every vessel, every soldier. Today, we do not fight for Earth alone. We fight for every world that will fall if we fail. The Council will not stand with us. The galaxy thinks us children. But when this day is done, they will know the truth. Humanity does not fear the dark. Humanity burns the dark away. A roar answered him, millions of voices across the fleet. The order was given. The Exodus fleet surged into the rim. The journey was short, but the enemy was waiting. Black ships swarmed from the fortress like hornets from a nest, filling the void in an endless tide. The two forces met with a thunder that shook the stars. The battle was chaos. Human ships charged into the storm, weapons blazing. The void lit with fire and fury. Shadow beams tore through human shields, rending steel. Missiles and railguns answered, ripping holes in the black tide. Ships died by the dozens on both sides, their wreckage burning like dying suns. On the vanguard, Lyra shouted over the alarms. The signal source is deep inside the fortress, heavily shielded. Our weapons can't break through from here. Kane's jaw clenched. Then we go inside. Gasps spread across the bridge. No human ship had ever entered a shadow construct and returned. But Kane's eyes were steady. This war ends at the heart. If we cut the signal, the enemy dies. If we don't, humanity dies. There is no other choice. A plan formed. The vanguard, escorted by the fastest strike cruisers, would break through the fortress defenses and deliver a weapon straight into its core. A weapon built in secret on Earth, the Soul Spear, a bomb of pure energy, strong enough to burn a star. The fleet fought to clear a path. Ships sacrificed themselves, ramming into black vessels, tearing holes in the wall of enemy fire. The vanguard and its escorts dove through, shields screaming, engines burning at their limits. The fortress loomed ahead, a mountain of black steel and stone, alive with pulsing veins of red. Beams of death slashed from its towers, tearing apart cruisers one by one. But still the humans pressed on. At last, they reached its surface. Docking claws slammed into alien metal, cutting through. Soldiers poured inside, armored and armed. The halls were dark and alive, walls shifting like flesh. From the shadows, enemy soldiers emerged, their armor glowing with red eyes. The fighting was brutal. Humans and shadow clashed in corridors of nightmare. Gunfire echoed. Blades tore through armor. Explosions shook the living walls. For every shadow soldier that fell, another rose. But the humans kept moving, step by bloody step, toward the core. Lyra fought at Kane's side, her rifle glowing hot. "Sir, if we don't plant the weapon soon, we won't make it back." Kane's voice was iron. "Then we don't think about going back. We finish the mission." At last, they reached the chamber. It was vast, a cathedral of darkness. At its center floated the source, a sphere of light, black and red, pulsing with power. The signal. The heart. Kane stared at it, his breath tight. It felt alive, as if it was watching him, whispering to him. Promises of power. Promises of victory. He shook the voice from his mind. Plant the soul spear. The weapon was armed, its light burning bright. But as they set it into place, the shadows came. Dozens, then hundreds, swarming the chamber, their red eyes blazing. The humans formed a circle around the weapon, fighting desperately. Bullets ran dry. Blades flashed. One by one, soldiers fell, holding the line. Lyra screamed, "We can't hold them." Kane's eyes locked on the weapon. He knew what had to be done. He looked at Lyra. "Get the survivors out." She shook her head. "No. Not without you." Kane gave a small, grim smile. "Humanity doesn't need me. It needs this." He slammed his hand onto the weapon's control. The soul spear roared to life. Light poured out, blinding, pure, unstoppable. The shadows screamed as the chamber shook, the fortress trembling like a dying beast. Kane's last words echoed through the comms, carried to every ship, every soldier. "Remember who we are. Remember humanity." Then the fortress exploded. The rim lit with the fire of a newborn sun. The signal was broken. The shadow ships across the battle froze, their red eyes fading, their movements collapsing. One by one, they drifted dead in the void. The tide was broken. The fortress was gone. And humanity had struck the impossible blow. The rim was silent. Where once the fortress pulsed with endless life, now only drifting ruins remained. Black shards floated through space, burning faintly in the light of the newborn explosion. The shadow fleet, once endless, was gone, silent husks with no will, no signal to command them. Humanity had done the impossible. But the cost was carved into every survivor's heart. Commander Elias Kane, the man who had led them into the fire, was gone. His sacrifice had shattered the fortress, broken the enemy, and saved Earth. Yet his voice still echoed in their minds. Remember who we are. Remember humanity. The fleet limped home, battered and broken but victorious. Across Earth, the news spread like thunder. Cities erupted in cries of triumph, tears, and mourning. Children painted Kane's face on walls. Soldiers raised their rifles in silent salute. Humanity had lost a leader, but gained a legend. The Galactic Council, so proud and so certain, could no longer deny the truth. The holograms of Kane's final act played across their halls, the fire of the Soul Spear lighting the void. The alien rulers sat in silence, their arrogance stripped away. At last, the stone-bodied elder spoke, his voice heavy with shame. We laughed at them. We mocked them. Yet in their fire, they did what none of us dared. Humanity has stood alone against the dark. And they prevailed. For the first time in its long history, the Council bowed its head to a new race. Not because of fear, but because of respect. On Earth, life slowly returned to rhythm. Factories shifted from war to rebuilding. Families reunited. But humanity was no longer the same. They had been mocked as reckless children. Now, the galaxy looked at them with new eyes. Eyes that saw strength. Eyes that saw a people who would never bend. Lyra, promoted to admiral, stood in orbit above Earth. She looked down at the blue planet below, then at the stars stretching endlessly. Her voice was quiet, but carried the weight of every victory and every loss. Kane lit the fire, she whispered. Now it is ours to keep it burning. The Council sent envoys, offering treaties and alliances. Worlds that had once ignored Earth now sought friendship. But humanity remembered. They remembered the silence when they cried for help. They remembered the laughter when they warned of danger. So they accepted allies, but not masters. They built stronger fleets, forged new weapons, and trained new generations. Humanity had learned a simple truth in the blood of war. Peace was not given. It was earned and guarded. Years passed, and whispers spread across the stars. Whispers of the humans, who fought like wolves. Whispers of the fleet that had burned the fortress. Whispers of a commander who gave his life so his people could rise. The galaxy began to tell a story. A story of the Council, blind and arrogant. A story of the shadows, endless and merciless. And a story of humanity, small but fierce, mocked but unbroken. The story always ended the same way, with fire lighting the darkness, with the fortress falling, with Kane's voice echoing in the silence of space. Remember humanity. And so, when new threats began to stir in distant corners of the galaxy, when darkness rose again, the other races no longer looked to the Council. They turned their eyes to Earth. Because they knew the truth now. If the shadows returned, if any enemy threatened the stars, it would not be the Council that stood first. It would be humanity. The children of Earth. The fire of the galaxy. The species that would never kneel. And deep in the void, among the ruins of the fortress, faint signals still whispered. Broken, weak, but not gone. The shadow had been shattered, but not destroyed. And humanity would be waiting. The galaxy was never the same again. Humanity, once dismissed as loud, reckless children, had carved their name into the stars with fire and blood. They had faced the storm, when all others hid, and they had endured. Statues of Commander Elias Kane rose in cities across Earth and its colonies. His name became more than a man. It became a promise. A promise that no human would ever bow to darkness again. Children spoke his last words in classrooms. Soldiers engraved them on their armor. Remember humanity. The Council, once mocking, now cautious, watched humanity with uneasy respect. They no longer dared to laugh. For they had seen what humans could do when cornered. They had seen them turn despair into fire. And though peace returned for a time, the galaxy knew it would not last. Somewhere, in the ruins of the fortress, broken signals still pulsed. Faint. Weak. But alive. The shadow was not gone. And when it returned, the galaxy would look once more to Earth. Because only humanity had proven the will to fight the impossible. Only humanity had walked into the darkness and come back burning brighter. And when the stars shook again, one truth would echo louder than all others. Humanity is fire. And fire never dies.